Okay, this video is on triangle angles. Please make sure that you have either your journal or notebook paper out to take notes. You will also need your homework packet. Pause the videos whenever necessary so that you can keep up. Okay, all triangles can be classified two ways. One way is by their sides. Remember, each side of a triangle is a line segment, and line segments that have the same length are called congruent segments and are indicated by the tick marks. So congruent means that they are the same. Okay, this is really nothing new. You've already covered this in elementary school, so this is just a quick review. But go ahead and take a look at the three ways you can classify your triangles based on their sides. You'll need to write this down in your notes. The first way is isosceles. Isosceles means that there are two congruent sides. There are two sides that are the same length. And as you can see, the left side and the right side, they each have one tick mark. That is to represent that these are the two sides that are congruent or that they are the same. A good way to remember that isosceles means two congruent sides is think of eyes. How many eyes do you have? You have two eyes, right? So isosceles means two eyes. Second classification is called a scalene triangle. This is where there are no congruent sides. All of the sides are different lengths. If you look at this triangle, you can see that each side has a different number of tick marks. This left side has one tick mark. This bottom side has two. This right side up here has three. They have different number of tick marks because none of them are the same. None of them are congruent. Scaling. A good way to think of scaling or to remember scaling is to think of a scale. At Christmas time, we usually eat a lot of goodies, don't we? Lots of Christmas pies and cakes, especially cookies, Christmas candies. So think about getting on the scale every day during the Christmas time, and your weight is going to fluctuate. If you eat a lot of cookies yesterday, then today your weight might be a little bit higher. If you decide, oh, I've been eating too much, I'm just going to eat salads all day, then your weight might go down a little bit. So if you get on the scale to weigh yourself, your weight could be different. Every day it's going to be a little bit different. So that's a good way to think of scaling as being all different sides. And then you have the equilateral triangle, and you can think of the word equal. It starts with equal. This means that all sides are congruent. They are all the same. And as you can see here, each side has one tick mark to show that they are the same. And we know that all triangles, or you should know that all triangles have at least two acute angles. Triangles can also be classified according to the angle measure of its third angle. One is obtuse triangle. This is where you have two acute angles, and then the third angle is obtuse. Now remember, what does obtuse mean? It means measures that are greater than 90 but less than 180 degrees. Okay. Then we have the acute triangles. These are where all of the angles are acute. And you can think of acute, oh look, it's a cute little baby. Think of acute that way, a cute little baby, and it'll remind you that acute means angles that are less than 90 degrees. And then the third classification is a right triangle, or a right angle triangle. This is where, yes, you still have your two acute angles, but the third angle is a right angle, which measures exactly 90 degrees. Make sure you're writing this in your notes. Very, very important to know. We're going to refer to this a lot. Okay, and then something new that you probably have not learned is what we call the sum of angle measures of a triangle. And this tells us that the sum of the measures of angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So in this particular triangle, if I take the measure of angle 1 and I add it to the measure of angle 2, and add the measure of angle 3, it's going to total 180 degrees. It will always total 180 degrees. It doesn't matter what kind of triangle it is, whether it's an acute whether it's a right triangle, whether it's an obtuse triangle, all of the angles will add up to 180 degrees. Very, very important. But Ms. Lee, why do the angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees? Well, a straight line measures 180 degrees. I know you've learned about circles, and you've learned that circles measure 360 degrees. Well, if I cut my circle in half, then half of it measures 180 degrees. So this half right here measures 180 degrees. And if I take my three angles and I put them together, they're going to make a straight line. Now remember, the measure of the angle when I put them together is this whole angle right here. Okay, that makes the angle. It goes from this right side over here to the left side, and it creates a straight line, which is 180 degrees. So we can find missing angle measures by using the fact that the sum of the measures of the angles is 180 degrees. So if I know that one angle is 49 degrees, the angle B is 49 degrees, and angle C is 47 degrees, and I want to find the measure of angle A, all I have to do is add up B and C and subtract from 180. So 180 minus 49 plus 47 is 96, and subtract, and I get 84 degrees. So the measure of angle A is 84 degrees. Now we are talking about the measures of angles. They are in degrees. So if I just put down an 84, that would be incorrect. I need to make sure that I have that degree symbol. Okay, what about this one? What is the value of X in the sail of the sailboat on the left? Okay, well, I see one angle is 70 degrees. The other angle is a right angle, which we know measures 90 degrees. And I want to find X. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take 180, and from that I'm going to subtract, add 90 plus 70, and we get 160. And you get 20 degrees. So the measure of angle the measure of angle X would be 20 degrees. Okay, so let's take a look at these two. This is where the sides, knowing about the sides of the triangle, are going to come in handy. If you look, we have two tick marks. One on this top side, right side, left side. Okay, this means that these two sides are congruent. Well, if these two sides are congruent, that means their two angles are congruent. So one angle will be 65 degrees, and the other angle will also be 65 degrees because they are congruent. So I can still find the missing angle of letter A by taking my 180 and from that subtracting 65 plus 65, which is 130, and that's going to give me 50 degrees. So the measure of angle A would be 50 degrees. Okay, for our second triangle over here on the right, you'll notice that all three sides have one tick mark. That means all three sides are congruent. So that means all of the angles, since angle Z measures 60 degrees, then all angles will measure 60 degrees. So the measure of angle X would be 60 degrees. The measure of angle Y would also be 60 degrees. Okay, so go ahead and do page 1 in your packet. I want you to go ahead and find the missing angle measurements and then sum up the angle measures. Make sure that all of the angles add up to the 180, and when you're done, come back and check your work. Okay, let's see how you did. Okay, if you look at the first triangle, we're given that the measure of angle A is 30 degrees, and the measure of angle B is 80 degrees. Well, if you add those together, that's 110. Subtract from 180, and you get 70 degrees. The measure of angle C is 70 degrees. All three angles are different, so this could be classified as a scalene triangle. And all three sides are acute. or the angles, I'm sorry, all angles are acute. They're all less than 90 degrees. So this could be classified as an acute scalene triangle. It's an acute scalene triangle. Okay, let's look at the one in the middle. We're given that the measure of angle A is 40 degrees, and that's it. But if you take a look, you'll notice that two of the sides are congruent. It's an isosceles triangle. If these two sides are congruent, then that means their angles are also congruent. Okay, so if I take the 40 degrees that I'm given for a measure of angle A and I subtract it from 180, that gives me 140 degrees left over. That means my two angles total 140 degrees total, so I have to divide that by 2, and each one is 70 degrees. All of my angles are acute, and because two sides are equivalent or equal, then this is an isosceles. So that's an acute isosceles triangle. And taking a look at our third one, you'll notice that there is a right angle. Angle B is a right angle, which is 45 degrees. We're given that angle A is the right angle is 90 degrees, and we're given that A is 45 degrees. We also, two different ways you can look at this. One is you could add the 90 plus the 45 and subtract it from 180, which gives you 45 degrees for the measure of angle C. Or you note that this triangle is also isosceles because these two sides are equal. Either way, you'll get the correct degree of 45 degrees. So this one is a right based on its angles, isosceles based on its sides. Okay, so this is the first video. Please go on and watch the second video.